let us discuss more impacts of climate change in climate fiction in this new lesson, dear learners. They can be not only film, television, they can be television series also. As we were just discussing how they are disaster movies, as I talked about Kedarnath, for example. There might be many more which you might think of. So there are television series also, and some of them have been very successful on Netflix these days, and they have an episodic format, and they allow for a more in-depth character development. So examples are The Expanse 2015 incorporates climate change themes through depiction of resource scarcity and environmental degradation. Years and Years 2019 explores how society unravels over decades due to political and environmental crisis. So these can be episodic, and these are a lot of these serials are aired today on Netflix and other platforms. Graphic novels and video games with climate narratives. So one of the games that is extremely interesting is titled Birds, telling you about species of birds. It is a board game with the idea in mind that you would have to help birds, help with their nest, collect their eggs, learn to appreciate them. And so instead of the normal games of winner and loser, or the games where one is battling the other, there is a new game in which people develop harmony, and they win or they lose by the amount of birds they can gather and the amount of eggs they can gather. So it's basically a harmonious interaction with nature. So there are so many games out there, board games, that are developing these ideas. There are graphical novels that allow for a blend of visual storytelling and textual narrative. So there's a vast amount of graphic novel material out there. It is there online also, and it is there in print also. So there's a lot of stylistic experimentation, and such novels are very popular among young people. So examples are The Great Derangement by Amitav Ghosh, 2020, The Sandcastle Empire, 2017. So we have novels that kind of give you this vision of climate change and have a narrative also, and that element is there in these novels. There are video games too. These provide interactive experiences where players can engage directly with the themes of environmental degradation, survival, and adaptation in climate altered worlds. So there are these video games also that are extremely useful in inculcating the idea of climate change and resolutions for it in young minds. So examples are The Last of Us Part 2, 2020, Frostpunk, 2018. Influence of climate fiction on visual arts and other creative mediums. So we can see that climate fiction is very flexible because nature is all around us, and climate fiction is about climate and nature. And since it's so much a part of our lives and our professions, our everyday breathing, so that goes to say that it can be included in any recreation or any entertainment that we do, any form of exercise that we do. So in visual arts, artists use mediums like painting, photography, etc. to convey the emotional and aesthetic impacts of climate change. So visual arts are, it's painting or photography, and we already know as far as photography is concerned, we get such beautiful pictures from famous magazines like National Geographic. It'll tell you about conservation also, and it tells us about the damage also, and the pictures have such an emotional and aesthetic appeal, and they presented in such an unusual manner to awaken us to the impacts of climate change. Examples are Olafur Eliasson's installation, Ice Watch 2014, brought blocks of melting ice, allowing viewers to directly witness the effects of climate change. So, these are all visual mediums, and artists can develop new forms of art or develop creative ways of presenting the challenge of climate change, and in the same creative mode they can offer resolutions also. So as we sometimes see in art exhibitions, the idea of recycling, which is a resolution to global warming, which will help reduce global warming, because all the garbage that is dumped in the oceans and the rivers, it is creating a very grave situation. So recycling is one way out to reduce that garbage. So the creative ways in which these garbage and these things are used, these things that are useless and which are discarded, like cans and bottles and plastic containers and straws. So the things that people do, the artistic creativity with them, that is also one way in which climate change finds an outlet and finds ideas to undo it, to deal with it. Performing arts. So artists often incorporate climate fiction themes in their works, using movement, sound and space to explore social dimensions of environmental destruction. So dance, music and such related arts are also ways of focusing on climate change and environmental destruction. So as said earlier, climate change is very viable and it is a very flexible topic. It can be showcased in a variety of ways through a variety of lenses. The examples: Climate Symphony turns climate data into music to experience climate change in a multi-sensory format. So all the disciplines that human beings study, they all have a different perspective of climate change, and all can be connected with climate change in some way or the other. Climate fiction and climate change. The relationship between climate fiction and climate science is a dynamic and evolving one, by intersection of imaginative storytelling and empirical data. So climate fiction is about storytelling, is about creativity. Climate science is about the science of climate, and both of them can work together, storytelling and the factual data. Climate fiction frequently draws from real-world climate science to create plausible narratives. This fusion of science and fiction plays a significant role in shaping public understanding of climate change. So this fusion of science and fiction is wonderful as a medium because it teaches, it inspires, and it entertains also. So as I had mentioned, this novel, it is The Rapture by Liz Jensen, and there is a girl by the name of Bethany Kral, who is a mental patient. She is considered to be a very notorious patient because in a fit of insanity, she has murdered her mother. There is an intriguing link between this demented protagonist and the changes in weather. So we can see that the science, psychology, and then religion, and then climate change impacts, they are all together and they work together in this novel. So a complex and interesting novel. So I quote from this book: there is colossal arrogance, he maintains, in the assumption that humans will last forever. If one looks at the planet's life across billions of years, rather in terms of humankind's meager history as a dominant species, we will see that our presence on Earth has lasted the blink of an eye. We are the agents of our own destruction, and when we are gone, extinguished by our own heedless quest for expansion, the planet will not mourn for us. So, another quotation here by Liz Jensen from the same novel: indeed, it will have cause to rejoice. Today, the human species stands at the brink of a new mass extinction, which will see, if not its disappearance, then its extreme marginalization. For the first time in human history, the destruction already apparent is global. In times past, children and grandchildren were seen as a blessing and a sign of faith in the future gene pool. Now it would seem that the kindest thing to do for our grandchildren is to refrain from generating them. Liz Jensen. So one can see how the threat of climate change is presented in this work, and how the idea of a healthy future with healthy children, that is undergoing a change. One rather not have children if one is going to bring so much suffering on them. So here is a clip from the film The Time Machine, based on the novel The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. So here is our protagonist who comes into this different dimension of space, in which humanity has developed so much that it has lost all its values. It has become a dead race. So let us see this video to understand this.
You know, in my time, a berry that size would have been big news all over the civilized world. Excuse me, sir. Sir? Perhaps curiosity has died, perhaps even courtesy has died, but I have come a long way, and I would like to know a few things.
Why?
Well, because I shall return to my time, and my people will ask me questions. Oh, such as, well, what kind of government rules your world?
We have no government.
Well, you must have a body of men who pass and enforce laws.
Laws? There are no laws.
Where do you get your food and clothing? Doesn't anybody work?
No.
Well, where does all that come from?
It grows. It always grows.
Yes, I know, but it must be cultivated and planted and nurtured. Well, unless you...
Well, you mean you have an economy so well developed that you can spend all your time studying and experimenting, is that right?
You ask many questions.
Well, that is the only way that man has learned and developed. I wish to learn. I want to learn about you, about your civilization.
Do you have books? Books? Yes, we have books.
Oh, wonderful. I can learn all I want about you from books. Books will tell me what I want to know.
Well, could I see the books?
Yes, they do tell me all about you.
What have you done? Thousands of years of building and rebuilding, creating and recreating so you can let it crumble to dust. 1,000,000 years. The sensitive men dying for their dreams. For what? So you can swim and dance and play. You! All of you! I'm going back to my own time. I won't even bother to tell of the useless struggle, the hopeless future. But at least I can die among men.
So, this was a clipping from The Time Machine. This is a novel by H.G. Wells, in which the protagonist develops a scientific machine in which one can travel back and forth into time. So, he manages to visit various futures into time, and this was one of the places far ahead into the future of his time. And you can see the elements of climate fiction in this, a place where there is no education. Education has lost its value, where people don't have any value in living or in questioning or in reflecting. It's a dead world. So, what is a dystopian world of the future like? It might seem materially very satisfactory, but actually, in a spiritual sense, it's a world that is dead. So here we have this unique blending of science fiction and climate change, which is extremely interesting. And I would like to thank YouTube for letting me use this video. Relationship between fiction and real climate science. Climate fiction operates at the intersection of creative imagination and scientific reality. Fiction allows for speculative exploration, reflecting ongoing research, environmental trends, and plausible future scenario. So, the relationship between climate fiction and climate science is reciprocal. So, it's like imagination is used along with scientific reality, and that is the way of creating climate fiction. So, there is a relationship between both of them, and imagination is used to present reality. So, because it presents that reality in a convincing manner, it is able to capture the imagination of people and humanize the whole situation, and thus people react and try to do something about the impacts of climate change. Such books lead to climate activism, and young minds get influenced by such books even more than others. Today, it's young people who are interested in the climate fiction movies that are on Netflix, and also the graphic comics that are on climate fiction, on science and climate. So these things are important too, and this is an interesting mode which captures the imagination of the young people. That's why climate fiction is a very important genre, very relevant to our day and age. Inspiration from climate science. Climate fiction authors often base their narratives on scientific reports, models, and data. And fiction is a means of communicating science. Climate science can serve as a form of science communication. So, we discussed this earlier, that individual issues related to people, places, localities, tribes, all these things, they are models, and scientific reports like the International Panel for Climate Change, the reports that it publishes every year on the changes in climate. All these are data that are used by climate fiction writers. So, they may, in the guise of a story, they may be able to communicate the exact status of that territory, that area, or that species. So, if we do not know much about what is happening in Iceland, what problems they are facing, a story from Iceland may tell us much more than a news report, because a story carries the emotion and the values with it, the cultural values too, which cannot all be mentioned in a simple news report. So, these are the ethical and moral dimension of climate science too. Use of scientific data to create plausible climate scenarios in fiction. Scientific plausibility in fictional worlds. Kim Stanley Robinson's The Ministry for the Future, 2020, and Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake, they sort of use climate reports, climate scenarios in fiction. So, when we talk about this novel, about butterflies, flight behavior, the scenes of the butterflies as they perch on the trees during the winter time, they have been very beautifully presented, and these scenes must have been gathered from a reading of the scientific data on the migration of these butterflies. Climate models and environmental data. Climate fiction often incorporates specific scientific projections related to temperature rise, sea level rise, and economic ecosystem collapse. So, as we said earlier, that there are reports by organizations which are having ongoing projects to study temperature rise and the carbon dioxide in the air, or the sea level rise, or the economic ecosystem collapse. So, all these are rare or material. These are the raw resources which help the climate fiction writer to make his work convincing. So, for example, Nathaniel Rich's Odds Against Tomorrow extrapolates from real research on extreme weather patterns. In the same way, environmental feedback loops. By feedback loops, initial environmental damage leads to escalating and self-reinforcing consequences. So, climate fiction derives a lot of ideas, a lot of development for its stories, a lot of content for its stories from these climate models and the reports on the extreme climate events. So, numerous stories written on the tsunamis or the recent earthquakes, they rely on the actual reports of the sufferings of the people and the state of the weather and the causes of the earthquakes, etc. So climate fiction is fiction, but it is not divorced from reality. It is a reflection of what is actually happening in the weather or actually happening on the earth. What is the influence of climate fiction on public understanding of climate science? So there is a very interesting novel that also got turned into a movie, Never Let Me Go. So it is climate fiction, but it has a very strong human side to it. The idea of love, relationships, all these things in a world which is ruled by technology. So in this way, the public understanding, it is enhanced of climate science through fiction. The public or the layman may not understand the details of climate science, of the hard words and the technical jargon, but climate fiction makes it easier to understand. It's like they absorb it more easily because it is translated into human life. So it is the case of this novel, Never Let Me Go. Science fiction, but imbued with human values. So example is also of Barbara Kingsolver's Flight Behavior. So empathy and emotional connection, which are so much a part of climate fiction, they translate climate science and make it accessible. An example is Octavio Butler's Parable of the Sower, 1993. So climate fiction is, I think, a very important and a very necessary genre for today. How else are we going to convey climate issues and the science behind climate change to the common public if we do not make it accessible? So climate fiction in the form of novels, short stories, different forms of entertainment, and it's reaching out in the form of movies and theatre, helps sort of spread the ideas behind climate change. So those who do not know about the carbon in the atmosphere, the global warming issues, they will also be informed. The thing that we know is that in a world that is where politics is important, where electoral votes are important, where the rich and the influential, they hold the importance, or they sort of control the media and the news. So how does one inform the layman, the person who is not very educated and who is at the mercy of politicians, because he cannot read science, he does not know the complexity of science. He only goes by the electoral vote. But these movies based on climate fiction, they can do what instruction cannot do, and people who are educated, not educated, they cannot understand. So movies can help a lot. Movies based on climate science can help a lot. So climate fiction in the form of movies can remove ignorance, can help in informing public to take sensible choices, because we know that voting actually depends on our choice of candidates, our understanding of what is good for the future. So when one is equipped with understanding of climate change through climate fiction, then one is also a better citizen. One will do a better choice of forming a government for one's country. So climate fiction is very important because it informs you through fiction and through entertainment, through movies and drama, about the reality of climate change and understanding it once and its serious consequences, one can influence public opinion also, and one can influence the policies of the governments, because the government will also be chosen by people who understand climate change. So that's why climate fiction is a very valuable genre and a very valuable resource to help people learn about climate change and to find resolutions. So we'll stop here in this lesson. I hope you understood the various roles that climate fiction can play in our lives and in our futures. And let's meet in the next lesson. Thank you.